Welcome back to the North Coast Coffee Club podcast, right here in Ballito, brewed in Ballito, built for the North Coast. I'm your host, Bev Mileham, and if you're new here, welcome to the most inspiring, exciting, informative, and community-driven podcast on the North Coast in KZN. Now, with me in the studio today, we are so fortunate, and I'm really excited to have Graeme Pitt here today. And Graeme is an AI trainer, and he's going to be talking about how artificial intelligence is changing the way we do business and the way that we work. And I just want to say, Graeme, that this is very, very exciting for me personally, because my word of the year this year, and I think you know this, is progress, right? And be careful what you wish for, because I put it out there that I need to progress this year, and one of the things I need to improve on and learn about is AI. And then you came along and you joined the Coffee Club, which is absolutely brilliant. Yeah. So I'm very excited to be speaking to you and sharing with the audience about AI and how it can absolutely change the way that you work and do business and so on. And just attending your workshops for me was an absolute game changer. So welcome to the studio, Graeme. So wonderful to have you here.
Thanks so much, Bev. I'm so happy to be here and excited to be here and share with you and the audience some tips and tricks on AI.
Yeah, fantastic. It's definitely the way the world is heading, and that really the cutting edge of where we're going. But what intrigues me, first of all, before we get into AI, is a little bit about you. I mean, what made you move into generative artificial intelligence? I know that your background is a maths teacher and you've been a trainer before. And what brought you to AI?
Yeah, so I think a number of things, a bit of luck and a bit of identifying opportunities, really. So as you say, I started my career as a teacher. I taught for 8 years locally in Durban and then overseas in the UK. Okay. Then I moved into corporate, into sales, management, and then I've pretty much been in my own business since 2010, doing market research, and then more recently the training side. I was introduced to AI about two and a half years ago, just to look at what the models are doing out there. And I thought, well, how can this help me in my business? So I started using it in my business. And then slowly I went, well, this can actually help a lot of people, whether it's teachers, professionals, anybody that uses these uses a computer can benefit from it, essentially.
100%. So, absolutely. And for someone who's never used AI before or doesn't know much about what artificial intelligence really is, how would you explain it?
So the best way to explain it, so there's a couple of things within artificial intelligence. It's a very broad category, and a lot of people talk from a high level, tech level, about automations and workflows and stuff like that. For me, the foundation is really about understanding large language models within the artificial intelligence. So large language models falls under what they call generative AI. Okay. And generative AI is being able to, having these models that are able to generate output, images, videos, content, whatever you're looking to create. And it's really powerful from that perspective. So in a nutshell, I focus on generative AI, and I believe that is the foundation for AI literacy and fluency in the world. And there's very few people who have had formal training on that, but once they've had it, as you said earlier, it's like a game changer. Huge. It's like there's lots of light bulbs come on, and what I focus on is which models are available, freely available, and which ones to use for which tasks, and then also how to use them, so how to get the best out of them.
Yes. And what is AI literacy that you've just referred to? Yeah.
So if you think about it, so before computers came out, which was around my time when I was at school, there was nobody who was computer literate, right? So everybody was not literate. Now, if you think about it today, you wouldn't have a job. I wouldn't have a job if I wasn't computer literate. Nobody would really, well, very few people would be able to have jobs. So that is the future, with understanding these models and how they work and how to use them effectively, is essentially AI literacy. And how you can use that in your personal life and your work life is really you are now AI literate and you're able to use these tools. Yeah.
Obviously, yes. Okay. And for somebody, some people are saying, well, I'm going to resist AI for as long as I possibly can. I mean, seriously, they're going to be left behind, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's what was said a while ago. So AI is not necessarily going to take people's jobs, but people with AI will replace people without AI.
Yes.
And we already see that happening in a lot of companies globally. So I think it's important to be able to, not to create any fear, because there's no fear about it, but it's important to adapt. If you look at Albert Einstein, one of the greatest cornerstones of intelligence is the ability for our species to adapt. And if we don't adapt as individuals, as businesses, to the new world, we will definitely get left behind.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Absolutely. Now, I know there are a lot of business owners and entrepreneurs and business professionals that'll be tuning in. And how can AI help them in their day-to-day work life as far as efficiency and productivity is concerned?
So that would obviously depend on what their specific roles are. But if you take a general look at handling emails, creating documents, doing presentations, creating reports, that is especially working with Excel spreadsheets, which takes a lot of time. So depending on what role you're in and sort of what function you perform within the workplace will depend on how you use it and what you use it for. But being able to, and most of the delegates that come out of the course just really see the time saving, and also to be able to, whatever you do, whatever your tasks and interactions and challenges are, to be able to do those more efficiently, and to do those, so in terms of time saving, and then also to do them smarter and have better quality output in whatever you're doing.
Okay. And what did you call it, an LMS or
LLM, the large language model.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there's so many different ones, right? And I know that we learned that on the workshop and the course that we did with you. And what I loved is that you guided us into what you should use for which task and so on. Which one is better for images, for example, or which one is better for a PowerPoint presentation and so on. But all of them seem to be quite similar in their application. So it was quite easy to be able to, you just need to know which one to use for what, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's two things there. The one is, it's like driving a car. If you've used ChatGPT, you can use any of the models. So there's 9 different models that are available to us freely that we can use for various tasks. As you said, they all have their own strengths and weaknesses. So getting into one car, knowing where the steering wheel is, you can drive pretty much any car. And it's the same thing with the large language models. When we talk about large language models, we're talking about ChatGPT, Microsoft Copilot, Gemini, etc. Yeah. So, and then the next aspect is, if you're able to, you understand how these LLMs work, and you understand where they come from. So to give you an example, Gemini is a Google product. Okay, Google, they don't just draw from OpenAI, which is where ChatGPT draws from. They draw from all of their legacy data and information and systems. And as we know, Microsoft very much focuses on Word documents, Excel, PowerPoint, etc. So that's where they're really good. And they're a fantastic tool, for example, for doing translations, checking data, checking reports, doing analysis, etc. So that gives us a lot of good feedback. So from Microsoft Copilot is good at certain things. Google Gemini is good at other things based on their their legacy data.
Claude and So which one is your favorite? I suppose it depends what you need it for, right?
Yeah. So I would say I'd have to choose Claude. Claude was started by brother and sister team back in 2019, coming from ChatGPT, and they've just, I would say, in the last few months, they've just come on leaps and bounds. They're way ahead of any of the other models from a professional business task perspective. And then so most of my business tasks would involve Claude. So you can create with one prompt and uploading, let's say, your financials, you can create a full tracking template. you can create a PowerPoint presentation or a board report document in the perfect format.
It absolutely blew my mind. I went into Claude actually to prepare for this podcast, and wow, the scripts and everything that it generated. And that's just giving it a few prompts. But I loved what you also taught us in the workshop is about being able to do the prompt properly. I think we used the acronym CRAFT.
Yes.
Can you just explain that? Because I think it's important the prompt that you actually give the instructions that you give I keep forgetting LLM, the model, yes, Claude, yes, okay.
Yes, sure. So the models, if we go back to in the initial part of the training, we talk about how these models operate and how they're designed and how they're trained. So these models are trained, they're large language models, so there's a lot of language and data and videos and everything that goes into the training of them. But they're designed to interact and act and think and behave like the human brain. Incredible. So that based on the neural networks, etc. So it's extremely complex. So they're able to take like 100,000 word document and summarize it in seconds. It's just the computing power is phenomenal. Yeah. So I think my take on it is that it's only getting better. So every 6 to 7 months, it increases tenfold the actual capabilities and the processing power of these large language models. And then if it's there to be used, why not use it to help us?
Yes, absolutely. And the CRAFT method, what does CRAFT stand for again?
We were going, I got sidetracked there.
No, it's fine.
So the CRAFT method is designed specifically to talk to the model like you would talk to a human. So if you imagine if I've got a thinking partner or an assistant and I'm trying to explain to them what I want done, it's a way that you frame and contextualize the requests. Let's put it like that. So, for example, if I say the CRAFT method is context, so we got to give it context. So, as an example, I'm a small business owner and I work in a specific industry. That's kind of the context and the background. I can go into as much detail as I want. And then we look at the role. So I want the LLM, the model, the AI model, to be able to act like a sales specialist at a global level that's extremely experienced and understands social media, for example. So I assigned it a role. And then the next part is an action. So I want you to create a social media campaign for my business.
Right.
I don't have anything at this stage, let's say. And then I want it in this format. So I want a very clear Word document that's formatted correctly. That'll give me a step-by-step process on what I need to do, and a step-by-step guide from day 1 to day 90 in terms of what I need to do. So I'm very clear about the format. And then the last part is the test. So how will I assess that what it's given me is perfect?
Okay.
So the grammar needs to be correct. I need it in a very clear, concise format. But it must be like downloadable and instantly usable.
So the more information, obviously, whether you use that CRAFT or not, but the more context and information that you give AI, obviously, the better the result's going to be. Okay, I got that. And as far as educators and learning is concerned, how can, sometimes, and I know I've been involved with workshops with educators, and their workload is phenomenal. And in what way can AI assist and help educators with that?
Yeah, sure. Well, the teachers that I've trained on the course, they are seeing huge benefits. So right from the start, what we do is we go through a very same process. So the process that I use to train is very much understanding how to use it, which LLMs are available, and then depending on your role, you'll then apply that to what you do on a daily basis. So for a teacher, that would be lesson planning, for example, generating ideas, and a lot of the drive now to be an efficient educator, you need to be able to create differentiated lessons for different levels within your class, for example. So what would take possibly a few hours to create different lessons or activities for different levels within your class, you can use the AI to do that immediately. If you want to, for example, explain a very complex or abstract theoretical example of something, you can ask the AI to give you. You say, this is the class that I'm teaching, this is where they come from, these are their interests, make it relevant to them.
Amazing.
In the South African context, in the Belito context.
Amazing.
So that does it extremely well. And then also, as you know from the course, the visuals, you can create infographics. So like you can take a biological thing like the cellular structure, for example, and you can create an infographic that perfectly explains what it, just by uploading your notes.
Amazing.
And then, as you know, videos, you can do podcasts, you can do
I was completely
quizzes.
blown away. Completely blown away when I put a whole lot of text in. Notebook LM, I think it was, and then it generated an unbelievable video for me on that text. It was absolutely incredible.
Yeah. And the other one, that the teachers really love is we normally do it, we split it up into different sessions, but the second session we do assessments. So you need to set exams, you need to set class tests, you need to set control tests. So you can literally, most people will just regurgitate and it'll take them a long time because you have to change the questions from the last year. So you can take that and say, I want totally new questions to generate, and then you obviously go and check it. You can tell it, adhere to the CAPS curriculum, make sure that you use Bloom's taxonomy levels 1 to 4, and it literally creates a whole thing. It gives you the model answer, it gives you the marking memorandum and everything that you need within that.
It's going to really, really, really save people a hang of a lot of time.
Definitely.
Yeah. Do you have a personal, specific success story? Where somebody, like a testimonial, where somebody's really experienced success with using AI?
Yeah. So just looking at a teaching example, I was teaching one of the schools in Westville, and one of the ladies literally was so excited. She sent me an email afterwards to say she applied what she was learning, what we had learned just from the first session, and she applied it to one of her grade 12 classes. And she said, you cannot believe the students walked out of there and they're in grade 12. So they've been through 12 years of schooling, and they said, all of them, this was the best lesson we've ever had.
Wow. And it was generated from AI.
Yeah, so for me, that's amazing. And then from a work perspective, I think I was at one of my clients on Tuesday, and they had gone through the activities, and at the end they do a final kind of task, which is normally quite high-level task. And I won't go into any details of it, but the lady was saying, okay, this is how I was doing it before, and this is how I did it now. What would have taken me 4 or 5 hours has now taken me 15 minutes, and I've got exactly what I want and better, because I haven't missed anything. But what's important is that you are the expert always. You need to check that the output is correct, because they can do some funky things depending on what models you're using.
Yes.
But at the moment, things, you're the expert, so you check those things.
You do need to check, because I know even in Gemini, it actually says there, Gemini can make mistakes. And we do have to be the author. The final authority, absolutely. Yeah. And where do you see generative AI going in the next 3 to 5 years, Graeme?
So I think the next big step, because if you take this, let's say, for example, as you did in the course, you can now generate you can generate your own logos, you can generate your own professional images, for example, that you can use in presentations that previously you would have had to call on a professional to do that. So what these generative AIs and the LLMs, what they do for us is they bring to the person on the street, layman, for like all of us who aren't necessarily coders or developers or highly technical people. And through the simple art of prompting, you're able to create something that is really powerful, that you could never create before without professional help. Now what we're doing is the next step will be looking at within your workflows and automating workflows. You may have heard of things like AI agents and developing your own agents to perform specific tasks. So let's say, for example, you can, if you're doing your social media plan, we've spoken about that example, you wanted a social media strategy, you can create an agent to be able to, every Monday morning, to set up a specific action plan to look for potential clients on the web as a lead generator, create a social media, Facebook post or whatever to target those people, and that's something, and it'll kind of run on its own. There obviously will be human intelligence. So for me, that's the level that it's going to get to, where we're going to be able to create our own automation processes and workflows within our own roles.
Right.
That makes sense.
Well, to the listeners, I really, really highly recommend signing up onto Graeme's workshop. How can they get in touch with you, Graeme?
So I think we'll leave a caption at the end of the podcast with my details, and then you're welcome to contact me and on whatever course is coming. We have probably I think since we met you at the Coffee Club a month ago, we've done 2 courses already here in Ballito, and we've got another one scheduled for next week, and we'll just keep rolling, and I'll let you know when it's available, and you can sign on.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've had amazing feedback from the people that have attended. It definitely has been a complete game changer. So thank you very much for that, Graeme. And yes, and please follow us. And thank you very much for listening in. You'll find us on Facebook, on Instagram, YouTube. Please remember to subscribe. And this is Bev Mileham signing off for the North Coast Coffee Club podcast, brewed for you in Ballito and built for the North Coast. See you at the next one. Thank you.